For Chapter 17, it's very important that you read the textbook before listening to this lecture. This lecture is sort of a how-to. It just teaches you very quickly how to create major scales. But the actual textbook goes into a little more detail and gives you some more context for understanding what a major scale is. So before starting this chapter, you should understand, and especially after you read the textbook, you should understand the concept of a scale degree. A scale degree refers to specific notes within a scale. So the first scale degree would be the first note of a scale. So in the key of C major, the first scale degree is C. In the key of C major, the second scale degree is D. The third would be E. The fourth would be F. The fifth is G. The sixth is A. And the seventh is B. In the key of D major, the first scale degree is D. And then you have E on the second scale degree. The third scale degree is F sharp. The next scale degree above F sharp is a G, so that's the fourth scale degree. And then the fifth scale degree is A. The sixth scale degree is B. And the seventh scale degree is C sharp. And then it starts over again on the first scale degree, an octave higher, which is D. So you need to understand the concept of a scale degree. That's very important. There are essentially two methods for creating major scales, and you can choose whichever method works best for you. The first method is to match the scale name with the corresponding key signature. So in the key of C major, go back to the circle of fifths and match it with the key that starts with C. That's the very first one in our circle of fifths, and it has no sharps or no flats. So a C major scale will use notes C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. No sharps, no flats. If you take the key of G major, that has one sharp in the circle of fifths, so all you have to do is add one sharp to a scale starting on G. So you'd have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then it would come back to the tonic, or the first scale degree, G, at the end. The other option is to use a correct interval pattern, and that's something I'm going to talk about in a moment, but it's better to do that with an actual example. So let's talk about scale degree names and numbers. Each note of a scale is numbered from 1 to 7. So in this particular scale, we have an E major scale. You can check your circle of fifths and you'll find that E major has 4 sharps: F, C, G, and D. And you'll notice there are no sharps other than F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp in this scale. On the second, third, sixth, and seventh scale degree. So the first note of a scale in E is number 1. It's also the note E. The second note is 2. So F sharp is scale degree 2. The third scale degree is G sharp. The fourth is A. The fifth is B. The sixth is C sharp. The seventh is D sharp. And then you start over again on 1. So that's an important concept. We also can identify each scale degree by a name. In a major key signature, the first scale degree is referred to as the tonic. This is a very important scale degree to memorize. The first scale degree and the fifth are actually probably two of the most important scale degrees that you will learn. So in the key of E, the first scale degree is the tonic, and the note E. The fifth scale degree is the dominant, or the note B. So going through from each scale degree, we have the tonic, then we have the supertonic because it's above the tonic, then we have the mediant because it's sort of halfway between the tonic and the dominant, then we have the subdominant, which comes right below the dominant, so that would be A in the key of E. The fifth scale degree is B, and we call the fifth scale degree the dominant. The sixth scale degree is the submediant, that's C sharp, and the seventh scale degree in major is going to be called D sharp. Now, there's also another term for the seventh scale degree, and that's the subtonic. But in order for a major scale to have a subtonic and not a leading tone, you'd have to lower the seventh scale degree a half step, and that wouldn't make much sense. It would be a very strange sounding scale. So we reserve the subtonic for the natural minor scale only, which we'll talk about in the next chapter. So for now, just know The scale degrees in order are tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, and leading tone. It's important to memorize the names for the scales because we will use these quite often in music when you get into more advanced concepts beyond the scope of this course. So the first method you can use is the circle of fifths method. So to create an E major scale, just write the 7 notes of the E major scale, just like you did with the church modes. You start on E and you write 7 consecutive pitches, so E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Then you look to your circle of fifths, you locate the key of E, you see that it has 4 sharps. So you need to make the F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp in the scale, and that gives you an E major scale. You can do that with any key that you want. That might be the easiest method for most people. There's another method you can use too, which is a little bit more complicated. The chromatic method. In order to create an E major scale, you write out the 7 notes of the E major scale just like you did before, using the circle of fifths method, and then you just have to adjust each pitch in the scale so the scale follows a certain pattern of half steps and whole steps. So that pattern is from the first to the second scale degree, you have a whole step, and then you have another whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, then a whole step, then a whole step, and a half step. So between scale degree 1 and 2, a whole step. Between 2 and 3, a whole step. Between 3 and 4, you have a half step. Between 4 and 5, you have a whole step. Between 5 and 6, you have a whole step. Between 6 and 7, you have another whole step. And then between the 7th scale degree and the tonic, you have a half step. So with our scale starting on E, E to F is a half step. We need to make that a whole step. So we raise the F to F sharp. So now from F sharp to G, that's a half step. So we need to make that a whole step. So we raise the G to G sharp. So now we should have a half step. G sharp to A is in fact a half step, so we can leave that alone. A to B is a whole step, which is correct. We should have a whole step there. And now we need another whole step. So we go from B to C, that's a half step, so we have to raise the C a half step to make it C sharp. And then we need to move from C sharp to D, that's a half step. If you look above, it should be a whole step. So we need to make that a D sharp, and then we should have a half sharp between the D sharp and the E, which we do, so we can leave that alone. So using whole steps and half steps is another way to create major scales if you don't want to think about the circle of fifths. And this may be easier for some people. So it doesn't really matter which method you use as long as you arrive at the same conclusion, which is that E major has 4 sharps. And as long as you write in the correct sharps, you will write an E major scale. Doesn't matter whether you use a chromatic method or the circle of fifths method. And you can do that for any scale, even F major. In F major, you just have 1 flat. You can easily look at the circle of fifths to figure that out. Or you can figure out the interval relationship between each scale degree and make sure you have that pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. If you have that, you've got a major scale.